Hi, beautiful, and welcome to the Masterclass Sessions by the Feminine Network. I'm Leah Sky, and today I'm sitting with Kiara Jade, holistic counselor, speaker, podcast host, and author of Healthy Relating, Navigating Conflict in Relationships. Kiara is here to guide us through a more grounded way to understand conflict, to recognize what is happening beneath the surface, and to move towards clearer communication, repair, and deeper connection. Kiara, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, Leah. It's so wonderful to be able to collaborate with your community. And yeah, I really hope that this helps a lot of people in their relationships to navigate conflict in a way that is a little bit easier than probably what they're tracking right now, because we know conflict is a really, really difficult thing and it's really hurtful sometimes. So I wrote this because I had this massive fear of conflict a few years back, and I was just so scared of it. I'd find myself avoiding it at all costs and then find it popping up in other ways, even kind of worse than what it might have originally been if I'd been able to share my truth earlier on. So my hope for you all after this workshop is that hopefully navigating conflict is a little bit easier and you have a bit of a roadmap of what healthy conflict looks like. So yeah, we'll make a start. Hi, welcome, Abby. So I just want to acknowledge the Kulmamberi people of the lands of which I meet on today and all of the Indigenous elders, past, present, and emerging of the lands that you're meeting on today. Without them, we wouldn't be here. And I think there's just so much to learn and acknowledge from the Indigenous ways of knowing and the way they care for the land that I really hope can be more integrated into the way we do things moving forward. So I'm Kiara Jade. I'm a relationship counselor. I do couples and individuals. I'm also a spinal energetics healer. I run workshops. I write books. I do a whole bunch of things. Very multifaceted in my approach, but essentially the thread that pulls it all together is that I really, really love helping people learn more about themselves and the way they relate in relationships, and how we can kind of pinpoint what our wounds and our triggers are and clear them so that we can have healthier, happier relationships. Because we love relationships. Who doesn't want to get into a new relationship? But you often find that it brings up some of your deepest things. And oftentimes it seems like this fun thing to do, but then you get into it and you're like, oh, this has gotten a lot more heavier than what I anticipated ever coming up. There's only certain things you can learn only in relationships. So, yeah, I'm here to help people navigate that. And conflict is one of those things that I think a lot of people struggle with. So, that's just a little about me. So I've written a book on healthy relating, navigating conflict in relationships. And this is like kind of the masterclass that went hand in hand with that. So I'm really grateful to be able to share that with you all. We're going to talk a bit about like conflict communication styles. How do people respond when conflict happens? Because you might be one kind of person when everything's tracking along very normally, but then the minute, there's a threat in the relationship or there's something that's come up where you're butting heads, often different sides of our personality come up, different wounds. Our inner child might come out. All this stuff can happen, but I'll give you a few ideas of what that might look like, and you'll be able to see if you resonate with any of those. Then we're going to talk about a model of healthy relating. So, how do we do conflict better? What does navigating conflict in a healthy way look like? I think a lot of the time we believe that conflict is a dirty word and conflict is bad and it's just going to make everything worse. But I believe there's a certain way to do conflict where it actually can bring couples closer together if we're repairing and we're communicating really well. And that's the tricky part. But I think once we flip over to that side of things, once you know how to repair conflict really well, like you're such a strong couple. Power couple energy right there. So yeah, this is just my journey of getting over my fear of conflict, and the kind of I'm giving you a best practice kind of gold standard model of like where you can progress towards in your journey, to be able to have these hard conversations easier. So conflict is traditionally seen as such a dirty word. People hate conflict, people hate arguments, people would much rather avoid them. That's generally how everyone relates to this. Um, we in society, we're not really taught how to manage our triggers when they come up or what that even looks like. And we're kind of flying blind, right? We're very much in our subconscious mind when we're dealing with conflict, and it can be really tricky because of that. Um, a lot of couples you'll see just completely avoid conflict altogether and never argue, never fight. And some people might believe that that's a really healthy relationship, but I would argue that there's probably a lot underneath the surface there that's never been worked through, and probably a lot of resentment that comes up as well, because nothing's getting aired, nothing's getting cleared. And when that happens, and we do tend to avoid a lot, I find that the same arguments just keep popping up, popping up, popping up. I kind of see it as like a beach ball. And sorry to those who've been to a few of my talks, I talk about this a lot actually. But when we avoid emotions, big, heavy emotions, it's like we're pushing that beach ball under the water. And we're trying to avoid it. We're trying to pretend it doesn't exist. But there's air inside that beach ball. There's a charge in those emotions. And it's just going to pop back up in other areas. It's going to pop up behind you. It's going to pop up underneath you. It's going to pop up everywhere. So big emotions are kind of the same. When we try and avoid and suppress them, they just keep coming up in other avenues, in other places. And the reason for that is our subconscious mind really wants us to heal and really wants us to feel and let in that emotion to kind of learn what it's trying to tell us or what the underlying wound is so we can clear it. So it's going to keep coming up. And I think that's something to really be mindful of if you have had multiple relationships and they've all ended the same way, or you've had multiple partners cheat on you, or you've had multiple people be hot and cold with you. There'll be an underlying pattern there. And when you see it happen multiple times with different people, that can be a really good sign to be like, what is this saying about me and my wounding in this moment? If it's happening multiple times, there might be something that needs to be healed there. Um, so yeah, I really struggled to speak up in a lot of my relationships. I was taught growing up that, to be a quiet woman is to be loved, lovable, and worthy, and to not speak up, to not have a voice. And I was just finding I was just not happy. I'd have problems with a friendship and I would just avoid that friend for 3 months. And then that friend would just be like, what's happened here? And they never actually got they never got the chance to apologize even because I'd never been able to actually speak my truth. And it just got to a point where I just couldn't go on that way anymore. And it was just getting too hard to manage. So I was like, okay, this is my time to kind of dig into this, delve into this, go a bit deeper. And what's this fear of conflict actually about? And I'd encourage you to question that throughout this talk if you have a fear of conflict. Um, so yeah. Oftentimes, when we have a fight in a relationship, the problem that's coming up is not actually the real problem. So people will often say, like, we had this massive fight about taking the bins out, and it's such a silly thing. Like, why did we fight about that? You're overreacting, da 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 da. But I would argue that it's not actually about taking the bins out. There is a deeper need and a deeper wound underneath that. And by being able to navigate conflict in a healthier way, you're going to be able to give more airspace to that and actually get to the bottom of the root cause. Whereas when we escalate too quickly, suddenly we can't really navigate that conversation at all anymore. So, surface level problems often trigger our deeper wounds, which can come up from past relationships or parental wounds from the past, family history. Um, Oftentimes, arguments are actually miscommunication as well. Like it's really interesting the amount of times I've had a conflict conversation where I've been like, oh, this happened and I felt really hurt by that. And my partner's actually said, oh, I had no idea you were feeling that way. That was never my intention to make you feel like unworthy, unlovable, or like you weren't good enough. Like I love you and I'm not wanting you to feel that way. It's just when I did this, I was coming from a place of this. And then you're like, okay, well, when you did that, it impacted me in this way. So oftentimes it's a miscommunication in terms of like we're expecting our partner to say a certain thing like, I just did it because I couldn't handle you and you were too much. But really, that's our too much wound coming up. So being able to have these conversations is going to spread a lot of light on things and actually make it easier to navigate. Because if you don't think your partner's doing it to be mean or something like that, that your mind has told you the story of, um, we're going to be able to have those conversations easier. And when we don't have the conversation, our mind fills the gaps with our stories and our past belief systems. So if you think no one ever cares about you and your partner does something that's hurtful, you're just going to assume, oh, they don't care about me. If you haven't had this conversation to actually work out what they were thinking and feeling during that time. So there are different kinds of communication styles. oftentimes when there's a trigger, we'll revert to one of these, or sometimes multiple of these as well. And often you'll get different partners with different styles that kind of clash against each other as well. So sometimes we can get really emotional, we can get really sad or really heightened or just start crying. It's like when I used to talk about conflict and I'd be really scared, I'd just cry. And then that made it really hard to talk. And then that was kind of really difficult for me. Um, so yeah, you can get highly emotional when a trigger comes up. People can get defensive and sometimes aggressive in the way they talk, or they're just trying to blame the other person, or just trying to deflect from them not doing anything wrong, and kind of, yeah, escalate in that way. Or we can just shut down. Maybe we just learned that, our parents navigated trauma by just shutting down and being really quiet and not leaning in to having those conversations. And that's how you handle conflict, right? Like a lot of these come from our parental environments that we had growing up, or like what we witnessed them do, is oftentimes what we've taken on board. Because when we're kids, we're just little sponges. Our subconscious brain is just sponging everything up. And oftentimes, this is a generational wound. And oftentimes, a lot of my clients are the cycle breakers, the little ones who are meant to work through that wound and actually clear it. So, oftentimes, you'll see people get their parents' reactions. Or you'll go the opposite if you had maybe a really aggressive parent who you really struggled with dealing with and you felt that was really terrifying. You'll go the opposite where you just shut down really naturally and really easily because you don't want to have that effect on people that your parent had on you. Um, and then also there's the open style. So I guess this is, again, the gold standard that we're striving towards. I'm not saying after this talk you'll be perfectly fixed and you'll be able to work in the open style all the time, but if we can maintain a bit more regulation of our nervous system and our emotions, and we're not running away, we're not getting immediately aggressive. If we can stay open to the conversation, open to what our partner's perspective is, open to what we're thinking and feeling, and being able to share that, you're going to be more likely to get to the bottom of those core wounds and actually get a better outcome and find a compromise or a solution. So that's where we want to land. The more inner work you do, the more shadow work, the more finding your wound. Okay, I have an abandonment wound, and whenever that's triggered, I get really emotional. I'm going to work on that in therapy. The more you do that kind of work, the more likely you are to be able to maintain the open style longer term in arguments. Whereas you see people who haven't done any inner work and they just fly off the handle immediately because everything is a trigger and a wound when you haven't done any shadow work, right? And by shadow work, I mean facing our shadow parts, our dark parts that are kind of hard to look at, and our parts of ourselves that, maybe we'd prefer not to deal with our abandonment wound because it's very emotional, right? Like there's a lot going on there, so we kind of hide it in the shadows and we pretend it doesn't exist and we suppress it. So by shadow work, that's what I mean, like going into those shadows and leaning in. And I think that is this work. If you want to be better with conflict, you want to be better with your emotions and triggers. I am asking you if it feels comfortable and safe for you to lean into these things as opposed to our normal avoidance strategy that most people use. You're going to learn so much more about yourself and you're going to be able to clear this stuff easier if you're trying to sit with it that little bit longer than what you normally would. And that's not to say you have to do that alone. Like sometimes it's really helpful to have a therapist or someone with you holding your hand through that because it's just too hard in the moment to manage that on your own. And it can be really good to have a supportive friend, a therapist, someone show you like how to actually navigate a wound and pull yourself out of it so that you don't just get stuck there. That doesn't always happen for everyone, but like some people, particularly people who like struggle with depression and stuff, can kind of get stuck in this pattern of thoughts and thinking and emotions. And so, yeah, I would recommend that you have someone to help you with it as well if it gets too much. So when we get triggered, some of you would already know the fight, flight, freeze response. It's very big in psychology. Whenever a wound comes up, we kind of revert back to our animal brain, which is the fight, flight, freeze response. So this is the same brain that helped us when we had a lion chasing us back in the day when we were cavemen. And your body goes into fight. Okay, we're going to fight this lion. Flight, we're going to run away. Freeze, we're going to shut down and maybe hopefully it'll just go away, or like if I'm quiet and hidden, it won't really notice me. Or fawn, we're going to people please and like maybe feed the lion or something. Like to deal with the threat and leave safely. So all of us will have a natural way of coping with triggers when they come up because even though it's just an argument, you're not facing a lion, it's still a threat. It's a threat to your relationship, it's a threat to your identity and your sense of self of this person's telling me I'm being a horrible person and I want to be a good person. And therefore, it's really hard for me to hear that from someone I love. So that threat response is going to come through in this stress response. And it's very unconscious. We don't often have a lot of mindful noticing of this until you're already in it. Or until you're aware of it. And then you can go, oh, that's my flight response kicking in where I just want to leave. Yeah. Um, It's completely normal to fall into these patterns. I wouldn't be concerned if you are noticing that you are in like your fawn response or your flight response. But I guess this is the part where if we're regulating our nervous system and if we're calming ourselves back down, we're going to be way better at navigating that conflict trigger. So sometimes when things come up, you're going to have like a big, oh my God, I can't believe they said that, and things are going to escalate. But if you can go away from that situation and calm your nervous system, and whether that's deep breath work, whether that's meditation, whether that's running, like there'll be a different thing that works for you. Um, and different threats will evoke different things as well. If you're in freeze, for example, I think meditation isn't always the best option. Like you might want to do some stretching or do something that kind of gets you out of that freeze response and into something else. But that's another talk. I would look into nervous system regulation and what works for you, but that's not my specialty. So, um, but yeah, being able to do that, regulate yourself, come back down to calm, and then be able to have those conversations, those difficult conversations might be the way to go. Some people can do it in the moment, and that's really great. And then other people really struggle. And I think I totally understand the need to kind of step away, have a moment. But the important part is actually coming back and still having that conversation. A lot of people want flight response, want to just leave and then never talk about it again because we're so used to avoidance. But the important part is to come back together and be like, okay, what just happened there? I'm in a calmer headspace now. I'm actually able to have a conversation about it. Whereas before I was too heightened, I was too emotional. I was just gonna like scream and yell at you, and like maybe I just needed to calm myself first before I came back. Um, so yeah, so this happens, your nervous system takes over to deal with a threat and our thinking brain goes offline. So it can be really hard to make compromises or find solutions because your thinking brain is gone, right? You're in your animalistic fight, flight, freeze brain. Um, and yeah, conflict is harder to manage in this. Not impossible, but a little bit more tricky. So to navigate conflict well, we need to be good communicators. So what makes a good communicator? Strong communication between partners is a hallmark of healthy relationships. It's being able to discuss the hard things, right? So the fears, the pain, and provide a safe space for our partner to actually work through this. So I talk to a lot of people and they go, I'm really good at supporting my partner when it's like not about me, like if they're grieving a loss of someone or if their boss is being really rude to them. But the minute it's about me being the problem, like I suddenly really struggle with this. And I think that goes back to when it's about you, it becomes more of a personal threat, and a fight, flight, freeze is more likely to be responded to. But when it's about someone else, it's like it's not going to threaten your relationship. It's not going to, it's not you hurting your partner. So you're better able to be able to stay in that open place and be able to navigate those conversations easier. Um, and I think that's that again, completely normal. It's less likely to take hold of you when it's not about you, but we want to work towards being able to do both really well. And lean into the tough stuff, lean into the stuff that we've been taught to avoid. Um, because sometimes all it takes is like just holding your partner's hand or giving them a hug. Like sometimes it's as simple as that. But everything we've been taught tells us, oh, tears, I don't want to have to deal with this. They need a psychologist. This is too much. But like just being able to go and go, I'm like, I'm really sorry that happened to you. Can I give you a hug? And just hold them through that can be enough to contain that situation and calm the emotion that's coming up. So to be a good communicator, it's the ability to find compromise because no matter how similar you guys are in your relationship, there'll always be something that comes up that you disagree on. And you see this in a lot of like people who become parents. When they were just in a relationship, they agreed on a lot of things. Things went really smooth. But then the minute they've had a child, they both have different ideas of how to raise that child or what parenting styles they want to use. And then conflict's going to ensue. So you want to be able to always open up these conversations with the goal of compromise. If you're not always going to get your way, and that's completely normal. You're not always going to be right. I think there's a lot of people who believe that or prescribe to that, that I'm always right and I always get my way. Otherwise, I'm unhappy in relationships. There's got to be a bit of give and take here. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to solve things. Um, to be a good communicator is the ability to recover from conflict without needing to lash out or get defensive. A lot of times, people will attack their partner when they come at them, and it becomes partner against partner. You really want it to be both partners against the problem, right? So when you're both fighting the problem together, it's a lot easier. But when you're fighting each other, it becomes a lot more difficult. So trying to take that blame out of it can be very useful when you're having conflict, because the minute you're blaming each other and you're the worst because you did this, everything will just escalate more heightened. But if it's like this situation happened and I really struggled with that, can we address that? That if it happens again, how are we going to do things differently? Suddenly it's you two against the situation. And it's the ability to speak up for ourselves and having our say. So to be a good communicator, you need to be able to, one, understand what your needs actually are. Like, why did that trigger me? What did I need in that scenario and what wasn't provided? Like, what could my partner have supported me with, but they didn't? And maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just need to be told. I think we live in a world where we wish everyone just knows exactly how to support us when we're really upset and really emotional. And we just assume, like, why don't you know this? It's so easy. But, like, for some people, it's not easy. For some people, it is really hard, or they've had parental wounds where their parent has yelled at them in those same scenarios. So they're just so afraid that they don't know what to do. And so bring it back to basics of like, if you see me crying, babe, can you please just come hug me? Or can you please ask me what's wrong? Or can you just be with me for like 30 minutes, just talk through what we're going through? Can be really beneficial to have those conversations when you're in a good headspace, just so that your partner's aware and can kind of do things differently next time. So when we have good communication, intimacy grows, right? We feel more seen and understood by our friends and partners. And when we feel seen and understood and heard, we're going to feel way more connected and we're going to feel way more loving, right? When you can't speak up for what you want, or when you're avoiding, or you just feel too scared to say what needs to be said, this is going to build a lot of resentment and it's going to make us hold on to things a lot longer than what we need to. So, like that friend I told you about before, like I held on for things for 3 months with her. If I'd just said to her, hey, it really sucked when this happened and you didn't come visit me, and I was really hoping you would because you were my close friend and I needed support in that time. Um, we could have cleared that in like a day. But instead, it lingered for 3 months because I avoided having the conversation and I pushed it under the rug and it got more resentful and it built up. So it's super hard to speak up for yourself. And I definitely appreciate that that's a skill that needs to be built. But it can also be harder not to say anything as well. So I think we think sometimes, oh, if I just avoid it, it'll be fine. But then you avoid it and it's not fine. And down the track, things come up anyway, or they come up more aggressively than what you'd hope they would, because it's maybe the third or fourth time you've avoided it and you pushed it under the rug. And then by the fifth time, you just explode. And then our partner's like, wait, why are they exploding? I'm so confused. Like, what is going on right now? Because they haven't seen you avoid, push it under the rug like multiple times, keep yourself quiet multiple times. Um, so yeah, again, leaning into that discomfort of like, I'm just going to say it before it becomes a thing, super helpful. Um, yeah, I've kind of mentioned those already, so we'll keep going. So, how do we build strong communication? So, we want to build a safe space for the person to be vulnerable and speak their truth to us. So, we want to be able to hold a space where someone can share their deepest, innermost thoughts, and we're not like laughing at them, we're not like dismissing them as stupid, we're not anything. You might think it's stupid, but I do not say that to your partner because that's going to hurt them, right? They need a space to be able to vent and let it out. We want no judgment, ideally, in these kind of scenarios. We want to respond and not react. So this can be really tricky when wounds are coming up. But again, this I'm giving you the gold standard today of like if you can just respond like that sounds really difficult. I'm sorry you felt that way. Is there anything you need from me? Instead of reacting of like, no, I didn't do that, or no, what are you talking about? Don't be stupid. Like you're going to get a way better reaction. You're going to be able to stay both open for longer in the open style. Um, we want to encourage open and honest communication. We want to tell our partner, like, I know it's really hard to have these conversations, but I'm here and I'm ready to listen when you're ready. Um, if it gets too upsetting, like I said before, it's okay to walk off. It's okay to go have a moment and decompress and calm yourself back down to a regular state where you're not in fight, flight, freeze. But just make sure you are coming back and still trying to repair it later on. Otherwise, it'll just go ignored again and come up at a later time. Um, know that you can step up, but you can't make someone else step up if they don't want to. So oftentimes we're like, oh, if my partner just did this, it would just fix everything. So you can definitely express that need. I would love for you to help me with this more. That would really make me feel more loved. But at the end of the day, we can't force people to do things. They're either ready or they're not. So just coming back to yourself in this scenario of like, what can I do? How can I communicate clearer? So that they know that when they do this, it is hurting me, but in a way that I'm not attacking and blaming. Because the minute you start attacking and blaming, people just they shut off. They go into their fight, flight freeze. They can't hear a word you're saying. It becomes all about their wounds. But when you can say things in a more clearer way, they're more likely to be able to hear you. Not everyone's going to be able to do that. If they're those people who haven't done the work, they're going to pop off really quick anyway. And that's not on you. It's not your fault if you can't, if you're communicating the clearest you can possibly communicate and it's still not happening, that's not on you. But there's always a way to try again in a different way, is I guess what I'm trying to get across. And also believe in the best in people. Like it's really easy for us to be like, oh, partner's just an asshole. Everything they do is really harsh and like just they're just mean. But have you had those conversations? Like, is it a miscommunication? Do they just not know what they're doing when you're crying? Or is it that they are just not caring if you're crying? There's a difference between those two. What is a healthy argument? So, if we can manage the conflict and repair the relationship, this can actually be a good thing because it builds intimacy, it builds closeness, and you know in your partnership, like, oh, we can handle hard things. We've been through really hard times and we were able to find a solution or a compromise that worked for both of us. And that builds safety, right? It builds intimacy. If you're able to speak your mind, if you can both have a voice, even just that alone, just being able to share with your partner your deepest things, even if it's still hard when it comes up, even if you didn't quite find the compromise you were looking for, you're going to feel like it's easier to repair that and it's easier to be in partnership with this person. Um, it just helps release the pressure valve and release the resentment because once we get too far into unhealthy conflict, we build resentment, and I feel like resentment is a poison in any relationship. Resentment is just like this underlying anger and aggression and like my partner's an asshole. Like that's the way I would describe it. Like you seeing them in the worst light, you're frustrated, you're just immediately angry and defensive because you've pushed down, you've suppressed so many things so many times, or you've had the fights, you've explained to them and it's gone on deaf ears and nothing's happened. Um, Resentment will build. It's again like that beach ball in the undercurrent of the relationship, resentment will build and you're a lot easier to jump into anger and jump into blame than you would be usually. It's harder to stay in that open style. So we want to avoid resentment as much as possible is the goal. It will eventually come up in some instance, but like the less we can have of it, the better. And the way to do that is to speak your needs and speak your truth. Yeah. Um, and yeah, we get an insight into what the other person is thinking and feeling. So we might not even know what our partner is thinking and feeling. You might be crying and expecting your partner to support you and they're not. You're like, why aren't they supporting me? Wouldn't any person support me? But maybe for them, crying, their mum cried a lot or something, and they were very threatened by that because then their mum would yell at them afterwards or something. Like there might be some underlying wound there. So, for example, I had a partner who I come from a big Italian family and I used to have all these family parties and he did not come from a big Italian family and did not really understand the concept of going to see family every weekend for a big party. And he was like, I don't like doing this. I don't want to come to a party all of the time with your family. And I was like, do you not like my family? Do you not like me? Do you not care? Like I was getting in my wounds. And he was like, no, I care. I'm having this uncomfortable conversation with you. I'm not going anywhere. I care. And I'm like, well, then what is it? Why do you just not want to come? Why do you hate going? Why do you resent this? When I ask you, there's another party on, you're like, oh God, another one. Like, where is this coming from? And I was able to stay in the open style long enough to have that conversation. And we got to the bottom of it, of that when he was a kid, his dad would take him to all these parties and they would be stuck there for like 12 hours, an adult party, no one to play with. He was so bored and he felt trapped, right? And then so in adulthood, he was coming to these parties with my family and it was bringing up those wounds from the past. And even though my family were not as boring and he seemed to enjoy himself when he was there, I was like, oh, you come and you actually have a good time. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. They're not bad people, my family. Um, the problem was, it was like, I just hate that feeling of feeling stuck and being trapped there for so many hours. And so because it wasn't about me, I was able to speak a lot calmer about it. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you just bring your own car and then you can leave whenever you need to? Like, I'm just so happy that if you even come just for a little bit, that's kind of what I need. Like, just for you to come a little bit, an hour or so, even like have dinner. And then if you're just like, enough's enough, like you can go. I totally understand that. But I feel like it would be nice if you showed your face, like that was my need. And he was like, yeah, that sounds great, because then I can kind of go anytime and I don't feel stuck and trapped. So we were able to find that compromise that worked for both of us and get past the conflict. So that's an example of a healthy argument. So this is just a breakdown of like what is a healthy argument, what is an unhealthy argument. So I'll go through the unhealthy first and then we'll come back to the healthy. Always nice to end on a positive note, hey. Um, So when you get instantly aggressive or can't talk about it, or you're just instantly in your wounds, that can be really tricky to work with and find solutions for. So it's not to say that this is bad or you're a terrible person if you are in the unhealthy category sometimes. I think everyone's in there sometimes. But again, I'm just giving you the gold standard of like we're working towards the healthy. And if there's something in here that you're like, that's me, it's like, okay, let's try and build on that. Let's try and sit with that and go, well, why do I jump to that? Or what is it that I'm struggling with? Is there a wound here that needs to be worked with so I can be more in the healthy side of things next time? So we're always trying to just do better, you know? It doesn't matter where you're at. It's just where you're going, I guess, and the progress we're making along the way. Um, So the focus is on the blame of the other person. Like oftentimes you'll hear people say like they're just a terrible person, like they're horrible and they're stupid and I can't believe they did that. They're so insensitive, they're so whatever, and you're just blaming and name calling essentially. Um, you're cutting off the other person, you're not listening to their views, you're just like cutting in with what you want to say because you're just so frustrated. Um, you're likely to be triggered by past experience. So for example, like you might be dating someone new who's been cheated on in the past, and then you go out and, talk to a member of the opposite sex, or maybe you get a text message from your ex or something, and they fly off the handle, and you're like, I never did anything wrong, like, but they have trust issues from a past experience, and therefore it comes into your relationship because their wound is still present and they're still scared, right, of losing you in the same way. Because maybe that didn't get worked through in the last relationship. Maybe they just broke up and then it was just done and then they weren't able to work through it. So there might be times where past experience comes up in your relationship. And again, this isn't a bad thing. It is going to happen. And it's just information. Okay, how can we work through this? Because I'm here, I haven't done anything wrong, and I want to be able to help you with this. Like, a great partnership is one where you're both trying to help heal each other's wounds and you're both trying to support each other through what's going on, both of you, not just one of you. Um, in an unhealthy situation, you'll often aim to tell someone off and tell them that they've done everything wrong and blame and just make them feel terrible essentially so that they change. There's often compromise isn't often really necessarily on the table or even thought about. Um, if it gets too heated, they can't listen anymore and become blindsided by anger or emotion. So maybe you're just so heightened or so emotional that suddenly it becomes about calming the person down. It doesn't become about the problem anymore. We're talking about like if people are getting angry and you're just trying to keep the situation safe, or if they're so emotional that, it's just escalated to a point of like, okay, we need to help them calm and regulate now. But the problem isn't getting that we're actually arguing about isn't getting talked about anymore. Doesn't self-reflect. So I think the most underrated quality in a person is the ability to self-reflect. So in every argument, it takes two to tango. So even in situations where you're like, clearly I didn't do the wrong thing in this, I still want to encourage you to question, okay, but what wounds came up for me? How did I respond and how did I react? And is there a way I could have done that differently? Because when we're self-reflecting on our own part to play in every dynamic, we're going to grow, right? We're going to lean in and we're going to learn things about ourselves and we're going to know what we're looking for in relationships and what we're not looking for. I look for partners who can self-reflect because particularly if you've gotten really triggered and you've freaked out and you've blamed someone accidentally or something, like can you go away and think about that and come back and apologize? Can you actually consider, oh, like maybe I had a valid point that, I needed them to support me and they didn't, but also maybe I shouldn't have attacked them when they did that. Like, can you actually look at your own part to play and come back and reflect and then potentially apologize? Um, that's important for both parties to be able to do. Oftentimes you'll get one person who does a lot of that and one person who doesn't do any of that. That's usually the pairing that tends to happen. And yeah, people who always want to win, always believe they're right, like you're just boxing yourself in when you have this belief system. That's all it is a belief system. No one's ever always right. I'll probably lose some followers saying that one, but I fully believe that there's always something else going on. It's a coping mechanism to feel like I'm always right because then you don't have to look at the deeper things. And so, how do we do healthy arguments? So, you want to be able to articulate assertively why you're upset. So, not aggressively, not attacking, but just being able to say, this is what happened. This is how I felt about that. This is what I need from you in this moment, if it was to happen again or next time to help heal that. You want to focus on the behavior, not the person. So, it's really easy to blame and say, you're a terrible person, you're horrible, you're insensitive, you're whatever. But instead, if we can shift it to like, it feels horrible when you don't listen to me, or I feel really sad when you see me crying and you don't comfort me. So if we focus on the behavior and not blaming the person as a terrible person, you're more likely to get them on board with finding a solution. They're more likely to be able to listen without going into that fight, flight, freeze, triggered wound. You want to hear out both sides of the story without cutting them off or interrupting. Allow both parties to have their voice and have their say. Maybe it is a miscommunication and you've just seen it in completely different ways. Maybe one of you thinks that's an appropriate way to behave, one of you thinks it's not, and maybe you need to figure that out in your relationship. How you're going to do it moving forward. But we're never going to know what's going on for the other person until we actually hear their side. And it can completely de escalate things when you give people a chance to explain their side sometimes. You want to be responding as much as you can to the current situation instead of your past history. Oftentimes, things will come up where it's like it is about a parent or it is about something else. And that's okay, but that's inner work you can do on your own. Also, your partner can support you with that and you can heal it together if you are in a space where you can hold space for each other in a healthy way. However, we want to be focusing on, okay, a wound has come up from a past thing and how is it affecting the relationship now? And what do I need from you to feel safe when that wound comes up again? Yeah. You want to aim to seek to understand what your partner's saying. Like, why have they responded in the way they've responded? You want to know, you want to understand it on a different level instead of just assuming what you're thinking is they're doing this because they're an asshole. Why are they doing this? Let's ask some more curious questions and seek to understand their perspective. Um, if it gets too heated, you're able to know, okay, it's getting too much. I need to walk away right now and I need to come back at a time when I'm calmer. It can be really helpful here as well to negotiate how long that is as well. For some partners, I need to go away for a day. For others, I need to go away for 30 minutes. And then for other partners who really struggle when their partner does leave, it's like, okay, what would feel comfy and safe that, okay, if you go for 3 hours and then I know after 3 hours I can message you and be like, hey, where are you? Are you okay? Like, 'cause sometimes people go away for 3 days or something and it gets really scary for the other person. Like, have they crashed their car? Like, what has happened? I need to just know you're okay and that you're coming back. And that can make all the difference for feeling safer as well. Um, Reflects on the part they played in the fight. So, did you immediately jump off the handle or did they say something and you're like, oh, they're calling me dumb and I'm going to get really triggered by that because my dad used to call me dumb all the time. But were they actually calling me dumb? Like being able to just question, journal on things can be really helpful to just kind of get your head around where you're at. Sometimes things will happen. You're like, oh my God, that went from 0 to 100 so fast. I have no idea what just happened. Anytime I'm confused, I'll go journal and I'll come back at a later date. Can also be really useful if you're a bit more woo-woo spiritual girly, to journal, find out what the wounds are, and then do a little fire ceremony where you've got your candle and you release, say, I choose to release this wound into the fire, and I choose to call in like a karma situation or whatever it is you want to call in. It sounds crazy, but it actually works. You feel so much better after a fire ceremony. But anyway, we can get into that another time. Um, and or even just like burning a piece of paper if that can be a release too. In a safe way, in a safe environment. And yeah, no, sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's like I choose my partner against the problem instead of choosing my partner as the blame in the problem. Because I know that that's going to build more intimacy between us. So this is my model of conflict. So what this is essentially is the levels I see people are at in their relationships of how they handle conflict. So it can be really important to note where you're at and then also where your partner's at as well, because this is all dependent on how much inner work we've done. And level three is our gold standard. I don't see a lot of people at level three where they can both hold space for each other in a healthy way, but that's where we want to go. So level one is most people, I'd say, where a trigger comes up, we get stuck in the trigger and it escalates quickly. We don't actually end up working on the problem because we're too busy working on trying to calm the person back down, or both people back down. We blame other people. We see everyone else as at fault and not ourselves, and our wounding is very strong. Um, Again, conflict is tricky, right? There's a lot underneath it that is underneath that iceberg. And yeah, I guess level one, you're still navigating what the wounds are. You still don't really know, but your partner's bringing up a lot of things for you. Level two is you can discuss issues without escalating sometimes, or maybe all of the time. So you're getting better at staying in that open phase where you're not getting as emotional, you're not getting as heightened. You can actually have conversations where you're asking those curious questions of like, where does this come from? Or like, have you ever felt this before this day? Or I feel like you jump to that really fast. Like, can we have a conversation about that? Like, I wasn't calling you dumb and you think I was calling you dumb. Like, where did that come from? Um, you can talk about your parental wounds or past history. You can maybe you have a bit of a connection to your inner child and you've done that work already. You have an awareness of, yeah, I've definitely got an abandonment wound. And when that comes up, I respond in this way. Like you've done that bit more of the work to know how you're going to react in certain scenarios. Um, Probably have an awareness of your attachment styles as well. And then level three is both partners can hold a safe space for each other to process and reflect without triggers and we're not reacting or running away. So again, this is like the top tier. Like again, not many people are there, but the goal is to be able to hold that safe space to hear out your partner, hear out what they have to say without you freaking out and being like, they're calling me an asshole and just escalating. We want to be able to be like, okay, I'm sad about what they've just said, and I'm gonna hold that to the side for a second while I listen to the rest of what they say with like empathy and humanity. And then I can come back to that later on, whether by myself with a therapist or bring that up to them that when you said this, it made me feel this. So how do we work with those? So you might be like, yeah, I'm a clear level two, so this is what I would recommend. So if you're in level one, you'd want to work on calming your nervous system. So that fight, flight, freeze response, recognizing when you're in it and learning some techniques of how to soothe and process and calm yourself when you do get triggered, such as breath work, exercise, meditation, releasing the tension. And then being able to come back and try again at those conversations. That's probably the key point there. You've been able to calm your nervous system and you're like, okay, now that I'm still sad about it or whatever, it's probably not fully cleared, but I'm in a better headspace where I can try again. Yeah. And there's going to be times where you try again and it still escalates and you still end up on that roller coaster. And that's okay because every time you try again and then you go away and you journal about it and you maybe do a fire ceremony about it and come back again, like it's going to get easier, right? Um, and sometimes we do have to just go, okay, agree to disagree with certain people. Like, I love my brother, but no one triggers me on this earth more than him. With certain people where we're just so different in our views of the world, it's like it gets to a point where I'm just like, agree to disagree, buddy. Like, you can keep arguing this all day, but I'm never going to change my mind. Like, I'm set on where I live in this category. And yeah, if we can find a compromise, fantastic. But if not, it gets to a point of like maybe this isn't the person I want to be with forever, or maybe I'm going to spend a little less time with my brother if he has certain views about women that I really struggle with, or whatever it is. Um, yeah, you're not always going to get this perfect or get it right. But when we're in connection and partnership and relationship, it's kind of we want to be trying to work towards it more than say if it's a person or a friend or something like where we can leave. Um, Level two, so love on your inner child wounds, reparent yourself as you needed. So oftentimes people don't realize, but when they come to therapy, particularly couples therapy, I love to do a session on let's talk about your family. And a lot of the time what has happened in the family of origin does come into play in the current relationship. It's very subconscious, it's very not noticed a lot of the time. People don't have a good awareness of it, but I can very much see it clearly of how one plays into the other. And oftentimes, our current relationships in our adult lives is our way of trying to heal and clear what happened to us in childhood. So, being aware of that and being able to go back into your inner child and reparent yourself and give them the love they needed but they didn't get can be the biggest, most powerful work you can do. I did a reel on this the other day. I was like, I will die on this hill. Inner child work is the greatest. So, I would recommend if that's something you've never done before. Um, because being able to hold yourself when you're in those heightened spaces and not need to depend on your partner to fix it for you is going to change the game for your entire world. We want to be able to know how to hold ourselves and look after ourselves, and then also be able to go to someone else and ask them to support us as well. That is the gold standard. But for now, just having an awareness of that is really helpful as well.
Can I
And then
just
find,
ask a question? Sorry.
yeah,
So, with the inner child work, is this something that you offer as part of your, like, do you have a program for it? Is it something that you get people to do alone? Because even with my children are like mini adults, so 19, nearly 20,
yeah,
17 and 16. And so I'm really interested in how I can navigate conflict with them because they each deal
yeah,
with things differently. But what
yeah.
I'm wondering is with the inner child work, it would be amazing to do that with them now together while they're
Mm,
still children, if that's, like but it's from their past when they were younger. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
what do you recommend? Do you have like a course or something that you offer, or is there workbooks or workshops that you do on that?
I don't have a course specifically for inner child, but oftentimes when I run a course, I will bring it in as like a part of it. So I'll bring
Yeah.
it in as an exercise we do together or something. So it won't be the whole thing, but and then in therapy one-on-one, I would highly recommend saying to your therapist, "Hey, I really want to work on inner child stuff. Can we do that?" And particularly if they're a parts work therapist, they'll be very open to that kind of thing because it is very deep work. Like it does the first time you meet your inner child, oftentimes they're very sad and depressed or angry at you or like a lot comes up. So I would recommend having someone to hold your hand through that and not necessarily, you can do it on your own if you find a meditation online or something. But yeah, I would recommend that. In terms of the parent-child relationship, can be kind of tricky. Maybe if you're not the parent who's wounded them in that scenario that might be beneficial. But
Okay.
I think if you were the parent who was responsible for the wound, they're going to lash out at you. So it might be hard for you to be able to heal and clear that with them if they're also coming at you in that
Yeah.
scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. My current relationship, we have fabulous connection. We can talk about anything and we talk about things before they come up, which is always great. But with
Awesome.
my first partner, I can see a lot of, he was the one that would just go silent, wouldn't talk about it. And I always could see it coming from his parent. But I'm, yeah, really interested in trying to use these now in my relationship with my ex-husband so that we can parent better together,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
go back and go over some of the things that bring up conflict now that there's nothing major happening. I think it'd be a great time to try and influence some of them and just
Yeah,
have those
definitely.
conversations. Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see it in an argument with someone, they'll almost revert back to like a more childlike version of self in that wound. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good time to be like, this might be some really beneficial work for you to do. Like, I can see your abandonment wound coming up that seems like it started a long time ago. When did you first feel that? Or do you have an idea of when this first started for you? Because oftentimes it'll play out in a current situation, but there'll be a previous history, and you want to try and attack it from the root cause, essentially, which is often those at age 8, this happened, or age 7, this happened. And then that's when we talk to that part of ourselves who are still 7 years old and still holding on to that wound and still kind of demanding to be felt in these current arguments that we're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. Thank you.
no worries. And then finally, level 3. So it's being able to offer your partner true vulnerability to be able to share themselves and often and also share yourself with them, and being met with compassion and a reflection of their wounds with a kind assertiveness. So, how can we work on this together? Um, do you feel like this is really about me and what I've done, or do you feel like there might be something like from the past that's coming up here? And just doing that with conscious curiosity and kindness instead of with like a blame lens of like, this isn't about me. You're just being so like, you want to be very supportive in that space. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it. I will definitely do some questions. But just before we get to that, is it okay if I just quickly talk about myself for a second? Yep. All right. So my Instagram, if you found this really beneficial today, is Kiara Jade Relationships. So all of my stuff is there. Um, I offer one-on-one and couples therapy. I'm also doing free relationship reset readings at the moment for people, which is essentially like a 30-minute call where we just talk about what's going on for you, identify the core problems and the wounds that might be underneath that are coming up for you, find solutions of how you can move forward with that so you can have happier, healthier relationships. So that we can do that for people in partnerships and also for people on their own who want to get into partnerships as well. But I would recommend if you're in a couple, do one each. So yeah, that's just the link to that. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to discuss?
If anyone does have questions, just unmute yourself. With regards to your workshop, when are you running that? Is that something you run all the time regularly, or is it a one-off special?
So my reset readings will be around forever.
Yeah.
I just ran my workshop on boundaries the other day,
Mhm.
and then I've got an upcoming workshop on taking your power back from codependence, which is all about if you've got an ex-partner who, for some reason, you just can't get over and you're still stuck on them and you just want to keep going back there. We're going to do a bit of work around what is the wound that's pulling you back into a toxic situation and how do we work through that.
Fabulous. And with the everything's just up on your, like all the events and everything are on your website, so that's the easiest way for people to find you.
Yes, I'm in between websites at the moment, but if you go on my Instagram, there's a my link tree link is there, the first thing you see in the bio, and then
Mhm.
everything will be listed there and you'll be able to find anything you need from me there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much, Leah.
Does anyone have any questions? Beck, Abby, user?
Another user. Oh, no, the same one.
Yeah. Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Kiara? Comments?
I haven't got any questions, but thank you so much, Kiara. That
Yeah.
was really great. Like lots of things to reflect on, and things like the conflict triangle that I'd never
Yeah.
seen before. So lots to go back and think about. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. No, thank you for coming. And yeah, I've always got so much information. It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was fabulous. It's interesting, I think, how you can see the different conflict styles that everyone has in even just in the conversations that you have. Like my son that's 15, he instantly goes to fight, and I'm not even it's not even a conflict yet, but he's instantly already on the defense waiting to get in trouble. Whereas
Yeah.
my daughter, and myself, as soon as we think that someone's angry at us, we both sort of shut down and try and hide, like,
Yeah.
don't yell at us. So yeah, I found it really fascinating how to look at the different ways and be able to observe it. I think when you're not in the heat of the moment, it's so much easier to reflect and look back. But that's why I figure these conversations are ones that are great to have when you're in that relaxed, open, receptive mode, as opposed to in the middle of the conflict. Yeah.
Definitely. I think, yeah, there's a piece of work around when you are in that relaxed headspace, and then a piece of work when you are in it, and it's like it just happens when it happens kind of thing. And yeah, it's interesting how your son, like, you're like, I'm not even bringing up a conflict, but it's already there waiting to come out because there's a wound that's responding to protect, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they've instantly got the defensive on. Very, very interesting. So thank
Mm.
you. If no one else, does anyone have any questions or anything for Kiara? I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kiara. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for giving your time and hosting this masterclass. I've found it fascinating and really interesting, and I'm already planning people who I want to have conversations with who I know they say one thing and I instantly have this reaction to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been really good. Thank you so much for being here. I will make sure that all of your links are up on the page so people can connect with you. Thank you, everyone that turned up live. You'll see, send an email out and I'll have a link to the replay, but I'll also have all of Kiara's information and ways you can work with her. And please, with the replay, if you know someone, I'm sending this to my ex-husband and saying, can you watch this? I might see if I can do a watch party with my children. Um, it's something that everyone should have a knowledge of how to deal with conflict because it comes up every moment of the day, like when we're in relationship with someone. So yeah, thank you so much. And I will let you go back to the day. Thank you so much all for being here.
Thanks, Leah. Thanks, everyone. It's been wonderful to be here and share this with you all.